The holidays are coming, and with them, the annual dance of secretly changing the channel, subtly changing the subject, and smartly navigating family conversations. Remember, peace isn't the same thing as silence, and respect doesn't mean pretending that bad ideas are actually good ones. You can show up with both kindness and clarity. You can set boundaries without setting fires, and you can challenge the claims without questioning someone's humanity. Don't believe me? Well, we're going to sure as hell try today on Talk Heathen, because the show is coming right now. Hey, well, welcome everyone. Today is November 16th, 2025. I'm your host, Christy Powell, and joining me today is my friend Jamie the Blind Limey. Jamie, how you holding up?
I don't know. Oh, there we are. Yes, now you can hear me. I'm doing okay, and I am happy to be here. It's been a busy couple of weeks for me since last I was on, or a few weeks, and just happy to get stuck into some more calls and conversations, hopefully.
Yeah, no, holidays are coming, so I think we're all a little, a little busy, a little bit wired, and getting ready for some big stuff. How are you feeling about this time of year? Does it bring anything in particular up for you?
Well, I'm British, so I don't give thanks for shit.
Fair enough.
But no, I have actually had some very pleasant Thanksgivings. I do enjoy that it is almost entirely a celebration of togetherness and food, and I like both of those things a lot. So I am looking forward, and now I'm in a slightly more stable home position. Very, very lucky to be so. I'm looking forward to a low-key but earnest Thanksgiving celebration. I'm going to actually be cooking some Thanksgiving dinner this year, which I haven't done before. Looking forward to that. I will be making calls to my family because although they, of course, don't celebrate it because they're, in England, it's a time for family. So the ones I still speak to, because there are a couple I don't.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be a big part of the conversation today and a lot of people's experiences around the holidays, particularly as a non-religious community. One of the things that binds us, most of us, many of us, is that we've walked away from religion, and sometimes that means walking away from a religious family.
Yeah, my family, I don't have as much religious schism as many of the people that I interact with. I'm kind of lucky in that way. But there are other topics that have caused rifts. And it's a similar kind of feeling, even if you still have a relationship with the people that you love or at least loved. But there are certain topics or areas that are bound to cause friction. It just feels like you're stepping into a situation with a weighted blanket over your shoulders.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that you have sort of similar. Everyone has at least one group or situation in their life where they have to walk on eggshells a little bit, I'm assuming.
Oh, no question. To be a little bit transparent, this Thanksgiving will actually be the first year without certain family members because of things that happened last Thanksgiving. So I think everybody's going to be at least a little bit on edge. I mean, we're all there because we love each other, and I think there's some universality in that idea. But loving each other isn't always easy under certain circumstances. And with the political divide in our country right now, nobody needs me to pontificate about that. I think a lot of people watching this right now are, kind of on edge thinking about what the next 2 months is going to look like.
Yeah. And so it's the double whammy. You got this one and then Christmas. But of course,
right around the corner. Yeah.
We must also, of course, remember that Christmas time marks the celebration of the birth of a very important person, and that person is me. My birthday is in December. So, I'm not saying I'm bigger than Jesus, but I'm probably wider around the waist.
Well, on that note, I'll remind everybody that Talk Heathen is a live call-in show, and we have open lines. Get your calls in at 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/callth. Of course, on Talk Heathen, we're open to all of your questions about religion, secular humanism, atheistic morality, cosmology, philosophy, science, history, life, the universe, and everything. Today, we're looking at the holidays, at family and faith and boundaries. Jamie, is there anybody in particular that you're hoping to talk to today?
I'm hoping to talk to people from either side of the divide in terms of religious and non-religious, or believing and unbelieving, who actually want to rebuild those bridges because of the climate, of the sort of the issues that we're having in this country and others that have divided us. Building those bridges, getting back together, finding finding or reforging your tribe, even if you've had difficulties in the past, is something that we'd like to encourage. It's one of the things we've been trying to do here on this show, is to encourage conversation rather than argument, and understanding rather than conflict. As unsexy as that can be, I think it is more productive to actually want to try and make connections with people, especially ones that you disagree with, especially if they're your friends and family. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of this show.
Yeah, absolutely. During our secular sexuality days, it felt like 1 in every 3 phone calls was just about that topic. Particularly as we were looking at queer issues, there were so many people who were estranged from their family and calling in for some sort of advice. I am a therapist. If you're calling in today, I'm not your therapist, but I would love to help support anybody who is trying to navigate those boundaries, trying to decide the return on investment, whether it's worth allowing these people back into our lives, and if so, how to go about that in a responsible way. I'd love to be having those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, and if you're a believer out there in the audience and you're maybe hesitant to call, I think Christy and I both pride ourselves on being sort of like some of the most welcoming and kind of chill presenters for the show. So we will absolutely give you all of the benefit of the doubt for whatever point you want to raise, because we want to make those connections. And if you feel like you want to make those connections with people in your own life, and maybe want to get an atheist's perspective or someone who's on the other side's perspective on how we would have liked to be approached by someone like yourself, by a believer, to try and build those bridges again, where those boundaries might lie, we're here for you too. You don't have to just be an atheist to want to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, a little reminder that we are live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central on YouTube. Remember, if you can't make it, you can always find us wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on Patreon. As a Patreon subscriber, you get access to bonus content and early releases, including recordings of our TikTok live shows that take place every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Talk Heathen is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Beyond Jamie and I, there are so many hardworking, wonderful people who help to make this show happen. So I want to say thank you to all of the video and audio people, all of the moderators, notes and stamps, as well as our call screeners. And today I want to do a special highlight on Caitlin Beyond, who has been call screening for the ACA for almost 5 years and has been the call screening coordinator for the past year. Caitlin also works with local organizations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, was recently elected president of Metroplex Atheists, where she'll continue to spread the message that atheists defend democracy. Doing important work. Thank you so much for all your help, Caitlin.
Absolutely wonderful person. Really wouldn't be able to do what we do without her. And obviously other organizations are benefiting from her efforts as well. So lucky them too. Also, I like that malapropism there. Yeah, stoats. Yeah, notes.
Yeah, those two words together. Sure. Well, let's also go ahead and bring in Aaron, our backup host, to talk a little bit about this kind of conundrum of how to balance our personal beliefs while respecting the traditions and the values of maybe religious family and these kind of like high pressure, stressful holiday moments. Aaron, what are you up against this year? Any tension on your battlefronts?
No, I'm not really. I was raised Mormon. I've since left the church. My parents will be in town this Thanksgiving, but they kind of just let me do what I'm doing. They don't really preach. They don't really preach at me and want me to come back. I'm sure they want me to come back, but they don't make
Sure.
it, a point of contention, right? We have the relationship that we're able to have, and they're respectful of my beliefs, and I'm respectful of their beliefs. So fortunately, I don't have anything too terrible to contend with, like a lot of people out there.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that it can go well. We almost take it for granted that this has to be an area of constant tension. And I hate, as a member of the atheist community, going into the world with a chip on our shoulder.
Yeah.
It's not hard when you have to listen to like Christmas carols every time you go to the grocery store and, see all these like rage baity articles about, is Starbucks saying Happy Christmas and, all of this kind of madness. But I'm always excited when people figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah. It's my position that people are drawn to the religion that supports their values. They don't get their values from religion, right? You can look out at the different churches out there and see that there are liberal churches and conservative churches. Which one's right? Well, it's not, there's no right, wrong. It's just, what are you drawn to?
People tend to self-sort.
Yes, there's something deeper going on in us that where we sort ourselves into these categories that we feel more akin to. And also, fortunately for me, my parents, we kind of agree politically. So there's not really a big divide for us there as well. So our values, even though I'm no longer Mormon and they are, we still have kind of the same values. We still see the world kind of the same way. So the only difference we have is the religion. And so it's just not a big deal.
Heard. Yeah. Well, so are there any particular tips or tricks that have kept y'all on the rails?
We just don't talk that much. I think that's we're not a family. We're not big communicators in my family, right?
Sure.
So there's not a lot of deep conversations. There's not a lot of political conversations. We just kind of hang out and spend time with each other, but there's no real deep conversations. That helps.
Yeah.
I had the opposite problem in that for a long time, until not too long ago, for a lot of members of my family, I felt very comfortable talking to them about anything. And we would spend hours setting the world to rights over drinks and the like, and and that was every family member. It was my mum, my aunts, cousins, sisters, all amenable to conversation. But once I got more involved in activism and became more serious about some of my views, I became more skeptical, became more openly skeptical, and saw irrationality as a problem that was snowballing. I started to be called like a spoil sport or a stick in the mud, or why can't you just let people believe what they want to believe, and that kind of thing. And some of my family would engage in magical thinking or conspiratorial thinking, and I would have to hold my tongue on it. And then it just grew into here are a list of topics, and if we don't approach them very, very delicately and sober, there will be a fight. And it's
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't like that, because it feels like, by being more intellectually honest but also more forthright, I've been closing off avenues of conversation with people whom I used to be completely open with, and it doesn't feel great, if I'm honest. It feels kind of stifling. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people experience that, especially early on, as people sort of deconstruct religion or enter into atheism in an active type of sense. We do always hear about that sort of like angry atheist phase. And I don't think that is unique or specific to atheism so much as people tend to be a little bit zealous about any type of new belief system that they come to and want to spread that to the world. But also, I think it's fair to say that people who joined organized atheism are often coming from that sort of chip on the shoulder place of recognizing the oppression or the challenges that they've experienced because of religion. It can make it all very hard to go along and get along and to grease the wheels.
And we, on these shows and making content and stuff, especially when we're sort of striking that balance between what is popular and what is productive, can be held somewhat accountable for people being given tools and given talking points and given standpoints that they can use, perhaps not entirely understanding them themselves, that are very confrontational, you know, where we can say that religion is built on a base dishonesty because you can't prove that the deity believing is true, therefore it's all a lie. But that's very incendiary language, and that's great for a soundbite. It's great for a debate show. But if you're going home for the first time after deconstructing, and you've got this phrasing on you where you're like, I'm going to get them, I'm going to show them why I'm here because I'm going to tell them that everything they believe is a lie, and it's like, well, you're literally asking for a fight at that point, and it's like,
sure,
you want one? Cool. I would agree that you're sort of in the right on that one, you know, from an intellectual standpoint. But there are different ways to have that fight or different ways to have that conversation. And I think that we should try and, especially around the holidays, and especially with people who we don't want, whose presence in our lives is worth a little bit more than maybe others, just temper that rhetoric. If you feel you must engage in these conversations with them.
Yeah, the only person that can convince somebody of something is that person. We
Sure.
don't actually convince people of things, and so if you set out to try to convince somebody of your point of view, you're actually going to have the opposite effect. Most of the time, that person's just going to double down and entrench themselves in what they believe because they're feeling, you know, that push from you. That's just human nature to kind of just entrench and not move. And so your best bet is actually just to show genuine curiosity for what people believe and try to understand what they believe, right? And hopefully they reciprocate that, and they, you know, are also curious back and ask you questions and want to understand your point of view. But just be curious and ask questions and try to understand rather than try to convince people of anything, because you're really not going to be able to. Just not.
Yeah, well, so Jamie, you identified some topics that are kind of out of bounds, and you know, you both talked about how to talk about those subjects that are kind of out of bounds. Do y'all have any thoughts on how to set effective boundaries, particularly with family members who are sort of proselytizing or pushing these things, especially when we recognize that many holidays are kind of assumed to be like religious territory?
Well, from my own experience, the best thing I've been able to do is properly define what topics are trigger points for me and why. Mm-hmm. Be calm about it.
Recognizing your own trigger points, not just like hot button issue, but the things that maybe get under your skin.
Yeah, what's going to make not only the topic but also the aspect. What are the aspects of the topic that are going to get me riled up? Again, I won't go into particular details about mine because a lot of it is outside of the religious space and may roll into the political, which is not really our scope right here. But it's the whole, I don't mind talking about X as a concept, like this, like let's just take, well, actually, no, we'll take theism generally. One of my close relatives is a pantheist and cannot be disavowed of this notion. And so I will, when it comes up, they have these certain tics, these certain phrasings they use in conversation where they refer to their pantheism and how they believe things are not coincidental and they believe things are ordained and that the universe is intelligent and that kind of thing, and that we're all part of God. I can allow that conversation point to start. It's not that's going to trigger me. It's when they start trying to convince me of the truth of it, or like wanting me to humor it more than I'm willing to. I will very much then just put kibosh on it and say, look, you know, I do not believe this, and I will have this conversation with you if you want, but know that I'm not going to be as receptive as you might hope. And if you want to have a discussion about this, I'm game. But this has become an argument in the past. So if you don't want an argument about this, we may want to change the subject.
Yeah, you know, that kind of tickles my therapist brain in a lot of ways, because I think people struggle to have that type of meta communication, where you're talking about talking and you sort of acknowledge out loud, like, I am willing to talk about this, but I want to do it in certain ways. And I want to create a little bit of context, that context being that, you know, we're likely not going to convince each other, and I don't want to be dicks about it.
Yeah.
And I would say that you need to also recognize what topics you can't handle, right?
Right. Yeah.
If you can't handle talking about trees, then don't be talking about trees with people, right? If you can't handle talking about cars, then don't talk about cars, and just say, hey, you know, I would prefer not to talk about cars today. Can we move on to a different topic? And just ask people to respect that boundary. And then if they don't, then you have decisions to make on whether you can be around people that don't want to respect that.
Oh, heard. Awesome. Well, any other thoughts before we jump on the lines, Aaron?
No, I wish everybody well this holiday season. I know that they can be tough and fun, and just navigate it the best you can, and be curious, and respectful, and walk away when you can't, when your emotion can't handle it anymore. And that's okay.
Will do. Thanks so much for your support. We'll see you at the end of the show.
Yep.
All right, Jamie, are you ready to talk to Kay?
Yes.
Okay, what can we do for you today?
Hello, am I on?
Yeah.
Yeah, what can we do
guys,
for
how
you?
you doing?
Doing all right. What's on your mind?
Just hold on. Just give me 1 second, please.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. It is kind of quick to be online. I wasn't expecting this quick, so I was. Yeah. All right. Let me introduce you myself. I'm from Turkey. You maybe heard about that.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm kind of atheism myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And first of all, maybe I choose the name, maybe atheism, as maybe it comes across to me as, you know, some kind of weird that we call ourselves atheists. Because
Yeah, that's fair. There's a lot of other titles that often get sort of thrown around, you know, secular humanist being distinct from atheism, but having a lot of overlap, anti-theism. I mean, a lot of these ideas sort of show up in the community. But what is it about that word that you feel is maybe a misnomer or off point?
Yeah, it's just like, you know, normal, anormal. It's like a negation of the thing. And when we talk about ourselves like atheism, I don't really call myself all the time, although all like for pragmatical reasons, I am one. But when you talk about that, it's like we put ourselves at the same league with the theists or something else, you know. We are the normal ones, but they are not the normal. They are not the anormal ones. So we shouldn't be that's in that league with them.
Well,
we shouldn't play this sport. Maybe
I'd push back on that slightly because I love words. I like words a lot.
Yeah, I do like words as well.
And atheism, it is simply just it is a common conjunction. It is atheism, same as asymptomatic. Like we are all, hopefully, asymptomatic right now. We don't have symptoms of illness. That is the norm, to not have symptoms of illness. But it is, you are asymptomatic. And if you had to tell someone, if someone's saying, do you have symptoms? You could say, no, I'm asymptomatic. But if you feel that that's too technical a word, it's perfectly reasonable for someone to say, do you believe in God? You say, no, I don't believe. I'm not convinced of God, or I don't believe in God. And avoid the label entirely, because I understand atheism, especially in the modern age, has baggage. The word comes with some assumptions from people, and while we use it in a very specific way, a lot of us, in the colloquialism, it may be a little bit different. We say we are not convinced of God. Many people think that atheism means you believe there is no God, and we don't. A lot of us don't. Some do, but not me. And there is a distinction there. So I can kind of understand where you might be coming from, but let me ask you this. What should we use instead?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I guess there is something new. This is a new term that's coming about. Is skeptic, maybe. You know, you cannot negate if there is a God or not. We cannot prove that there is no God at all. But it is not necessarily the question anyway. We don't care I don't care if there is one or not. This is not the question. The question is, if religions are good, if religions are doing good in the world. For example, I think you are from the United States, I guess. You're not? Are you not?
I'm from the United Kingdom originally. Christy's American.
Anyway, I'll just give you some, even in my country, religion brings, religion brings laws that we still have to abide by, because religious people choose these kind of right-wing parties. Like in the United States, it's Trump, and in Turkey, we have our own strongman in here. So the question is, we should stop. I don't really call myself atheist. I usually call myself not religious, not really care about these things, because in my opinion, if there's a theo or not theo, this is not the question we should these are our minds. We should look what those kind of religion in effects in our lives today. Why we have to, for example, why do we have to, in Turkey, where I am from, why this government spends 3 times money to religious schools than to scientific schools? These are real things that we should, I guess, focus on.
I take your point. And I recognize that, when people ask us, like, what's your faith, or are you an atheist, or what religion do you believe in, that in many ways it doesn't necessarily come down to these big questions of, is there a God or isn't there? But this kind of consequentialist position that you're taking of, well, we'll just see, like, what are the results of it? Is religion useful? Is it not useful? Can become a little bit problematic, especially depending on how you slice it. I want to recognize that for a great many people, their church, their religious community, their experience of religion is a great boon to their life. And certainly on a micro level, we can find all kinds of communities that have been benefited by a particular church, a particular synagogue, or a particular faith tradition. And I think that we can still recognize that magical thinking, irrationality, a lack of skepticism are still problematic and cause pain to the world. So, I guess I'm not so convinced that it is as simple as, what are the results of these things?
Well, I mean, they do. The religion had served like quite so many times in human evolution, maybe. But now in the modern times, maybe like 100, 150 years, we do not necessarily need religion or God to explain how we come here or why we are like this. And when you talk about there's of course, like, there are religious communities, there are churches who do serve people, but they go from the wrong premise of. I had a religious friend. And like she was saying, but this gives me this. The religion gives me my inner everything, inner system, thinking system. It's okay, but it's cool. It's good that it gives to you this kind of peace in your mind. But when you compare to universal, concrete reality, so how can you compensate that with your? I mean, you should live in a delusional.
Well,
I was like that. But,
I don't mean to interrupt. I think we're on board with a lot of the stuff that you're saying, but there's a few things I'd like to bring up. Firstly, the original question, like, is atheist a good name or a good word to use? Maybe if I explain why I very deliberately use that term, and have more so used it and identified with it in the last few years than before. Maybe that would shine some light as to why. You mentioned that in Turkey there isn't as much of a separation of religion and government, and that you have something of a theocracy.
There were. I don't want to. There were, but it's eroding now.
Yeah, but so there's theocracy, and we are part of our mission statement is to defend against is to promote the separation of religion and government. So we're against theocracy. However, when you are talking about such serious topics, you can't half-arse it. You can't come at it half-cocked. And the thing is, while I acknowledge that atheist is a loaded word these days, when I'm loading it, when I'm wielding it as a label, I'm doing so intentionally, because a lot of people, especially people who don't want to have confrontation or push back against the encroachment of religion into the halls of power and into our lives in this way, would rather me say I'm agnostic because I don't know whether there's a God or not. Oh, you're an agnostic. You're agnostic. And I'm saying,
No,
no.
agnostic is like half-cocked thing, I guess, isn't it? You know, we all are kind of some kind of agnostic to some level.
I think theist or atheist, agnosticism is the only intellectually honest standpoint. I don't think anyone can truly know. Like,
yeah.
There's more to it, but I don't want to get into the weeds. But here's the thing. People who want to insist that I call myself agnostic instead of atheist are basically saying you should temper yourself and stop being so rude, basically. Stop being a big old meano atheist. But no, I deliberately label myself as an atheist as a statement of I am here to stand against the things that have come from belief in God. Belief in God in and of itself is I believe problematic because it comes from magical thinking. But that's an epistemological standpoint. We can argue that went over a cold drink later. But beliefs inform choices. They inform actions. And when those actions turn into things like legislation, then I'm going to attack it all the way down. And if someone claims that they can make the choices they're making that hurt people I care about because their imaginary friend said so, I'm going to stick my heels in and go, no, I'm standing here and I'm going to call myself an atheist and you're going to deal with it. And I'm going to attack your ideas from the ground up, from your God belief on up. Because if your foundation is my God says so, therefore I will, I'm like, well, you're going to have to evidence that thing exists or the whole house of cards comes down. Because this is it. Like, I want to attack the foundations of these organisations that are causing harm. But, okay, sorry, I've talked a lot. I'll let you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do make a stand, and I do understand. The thing is, where I'm coming from is I have no problem calling myself an atheist. I'm an atheist for all the practical reasons. I'm not necessarily see myself as an agnostic. The thing I'm trying to tell is, atheism is kind of, just take the word as a grammar word. It is not necessarily a vow. We should just call vow. You know how the homosexual people call themselves gay. Gay means, like jolly, like happy. So why don't we? And I think there's a new, I guess there's a new emerging term. Maybe it has been there, but I'm just coming across a skeptic. I guess this is something we can use, and this is something. And when you say, then I'm not necessarily splitting hairs between atheism and agnostic. I choose myself. I'm probably on the atheism column.
Well,
but we can use maybe a better name. That's where I'm coming from.
I'm just going to flat disagree with you there, okay, I'm afraid. I can't really get on board with that. And I'll just say this and then I'll pass it over to Christy. That atheism is a perfect descriptor of the standpoint on that particular issue. And it is a single issue. Skepticism is broader. I'm skeptical about a lot of things. I am a skeptic and an atheist. My atheism comes from skepticism.
And I know plenty of atheists who are not very skeptical.
Yeah. And I know I also know a lot of people who believe in God who at least claim to be skeptical and are of many other things, which is the most baffling thing, where they're extremely, extremely skeptical and rational on almost everything, apart from this one very important topic, God belief. But anyway, how about you, Christy?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's an interesting question. We can bust out the Dawkins scale and talk about what all of these different words mean. Jamie, from what you said earlier, I feel like you're saying that it's kind of intellectually dishonest to be at either extreme of that scale, to be the, quote, strong theist or strong atheist, that we can be sort of at most de facto atheists. And I definitely know some people who would disagree with that point of view. But I also know that when we're talking to people out in the world, they're not interested in memorizing the Dawkins scale or any other new system. I appreciate that branding is an important part of getting any sort of message out into the world. But I don't know, when I see people kind of bandy about all of these words, skeptic is a very popular and common one right now. I wonder how that sort of muddies the message for outsiders. And I particularly find that the atheist community often sort of has a hyper skepticism to it, or maybe there's an irrational attachment to that idea as virtuous that I maybe would push back against. So I don't know. It's not as if the three of us sitting here are going to noodle on it and come up with a massive change for our global community. But for my own sake, I don't know that I would push for any meaningful change other than the different ways that we sort of differentiate and communicate about ourselves within this tent.
Okay, let me shift the conversation a little bit, maybe, because I guess I'm not sure if I could get what I say literally. Just blind. Jamie, is it Jamie? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you just talk about having some kind of, like, I'm paraphrasing, like calling yourself as atheist, like a stand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a statement.
Yeah, statement. Yeah, I do like that, and I'm all for that. I used to be a Muslim, and I became an atheist after, like, some kind of thought and some kind of reading. And I was quite zealous when I first began. But the thing is, the thing I have seen in atheist community, and maybe we should take this as a self-criticism. Well, we do buy on random hills. Maybe 5 or maybe 10 years ago, there were a person. He was an atheist. He was an atheist. President of an atheist community in the United States, I guess. I couldn't remember his surname, but it was Adam, maybe. And he had this campaign, like, in Merry Christmas. And, this shouldn't be the hill that we die on. People could say, like, Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. And I do understand Merry has a, little bit religious connotation or anything. But it comes from, traditions of, like, old, like, 2,000, 3,000 years from, like, human accumulation. It comes to this place. And, Christmas was a pagan tradition before Christianity. And we should not necessarily, like, separate hairs or like this or the small things, but we should maybe focus on education or, like, voting rights. Like in the United States, in many states, they start to rolling back on teaching evolution. This should be our goal. Our goal should be, like, substantive, like the thing that has an impact in real life.
Yeah. We agree.
I hear that. And I definitely don't want to get too lost in the finger pointing and the mudslinging, but I want to say that I have worked with the atheist community of Austin and been a part of this community for, I suppose, just shy of a decade. And I've interacted with a ton of people who volunteer their time actively to go out on YouTube and often to argue and debate with people about atheistic ideals. And I have never once heard an atheist actively complain about people are saying Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays nowadays. Like, I don't feel like that culture war issue is something that comes up on our side of the aisle. But what I do want to point out is that it does kind of matter. I'm not trying to die on that hill or police other people's language, but I do appreciate why people would want to really highlight the importance of encompassing a culture that isn't just Christianity or anti-Christianity. Centraling the entire issue around Christianity negates the fact that there are so many people in the United States, in our Starbuckses, in our communities, that believe a great number of things, and that there are a number of important holidays and religious traditions around the same holiday season. And I think Happy Holidays actually works to incorporate that. Now, again, I've never heard a atheist actively get uptight about this subject, and I certainly don't want to be one. But I do think that distinction does matter.
Yeah, but there are more, in my beliefs, sure, it might matter to some extent, but there are more important things that we can focus on, maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time, and I just want the last issue, maybe. I called the line the other day, and I raised this issue. I started with this issue, so we couldn't go much long place. We couldn't have a converse. They were expecting like a debate or something, but because I want to pick their brain in this subject, so this is kind of like a little bit more extended subject. You may say, you may look at this way, or you may disregard it. It's all totally up to you. Now, as I said, the issue, what I want to talk about is, I was an ex-Muslim. I raised as a Muslim. I raised I was 8 years old, and my grandfather used to teach us, the surahs or stuff. And after I just started research and just think, and I could start. Yeah, it could happen, and yes, we could know things, and yes, and the God of gaps slowly erode in my where the God was staying in my mind slowly eroded, and start looking things like knowing things where they come from.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, I believe you were Christian background. Are you?
I was at one point. Jamie, I don't recall your experiences.
I've not really been a practicing Christian. I was baptized Roman Catholic, and I went to a few masses, but it was never reinforced as much in my family as it was for other people. I was never made to be religious. So while some of my family members are still kind of spiritual and some of them are still practicing Catholics, I never was.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very, it's good. It was good for you in that one. What I want to talk about is when you look at Christianity and when you look at Islam, these are a little bit. For example, when you look at Jesus' early stage while he was establishing his religion, and when you look at Muhammad's early stage while he was establishing his religion, their messages all positive. They bring around themselves all these meek people. Jesus brought prostitutes, and in Muhammad's case it was like beggars and all the it is like lower class of society, and their message was mostly positive. Jesus was saying, he was turned the other cheek, and Muhammad was saying love one another, and all other good stuff that extremely positive good stuff. Yes. You might say. But Jesus, before he could establish his religion, he was executed by the authorities at the time, the Romans. People say, he was meant to die on the cross, but I don't really think it was his plan. Do you think? And
I wouldn't really speculate. I mean, there's still questions around whether he even existed at all. But but I would like to ask, you're giving us a lot of background here. What are you wanting to get out of this part of the conversation? What do you hope? What?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting there. That's what I'm just getting there. As I said, Jesus could not. Many things in Christianity today, it was added by people like centuries after Jesus himself. Like the Holy Trinity or confessions. But in Islam case, Muhammad has established his whole religion. He left a book. Well, you can argue what actually happened at the time. But when you look from here to that time, this is more or less. So Islam is more potent. Islam is more absolute. Christianity is not so, more open to interpretation. And I believe because of this, it is very hard for societies to get out of Islam, and it is easier for Christianity. It's still harder for some people, but it is more relaxed than Islam. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean that rigidity versus flexibility is a complicating factor in a lot of ways. You know, I appreciate what you're saying about how it might make it easier to get out of Christianity because there is more like openness to interpretation and there is some sort of squishiness in a lot of ways. But I also know that can help keep people in.
Yeah.
You know, we talked a little bit earlier on the show about how people tend to self-select and self-sort into different religious systems that reflect their values. I know that is certainly not everybody's experience, particularly when we're talking about family pressures and social pressures from a community and things like that. But nevertheless, within Christianity, that flexibility can maybe help people change the type of Christianity they're interacting with while still holding on to some tenets and belief systems that maybe aren't benefiting them.
Yeah, sure. Very good.
Yeah, it is complex and it is a double-edged sword. Because there's so many people. I mean, back in England, there's so many people who call themselves Christian or call themselves Church of England or whatever, but don't really practice, but they still think they are, and have a lingering God belief, and it's a spectrum all the way from almost but not quite lapsed believer to like hardcore fundamentalist. And observationally, I don't know. I can't say I am not a Muslim. I've never been one. I've had friends who are, and I come from a country that has quite a high Muslim population. That yes, it is kind of like you're in or you're out. Not there's no real gradient of it. I'm also not entirely certain of how many subsects I know of Shia and Sunni, but I don't know if there's any subsects within those two groups and if there's any other types outside of those two groups. But here it's like you've got the Baptists and the Methodists and the Jesuits and the Presbyterians and the Episcopalians and the Catholics.
Let me interject this. The separation of sects in Islam is not necessarily so much in fundamentals, but they are like so much in nitty-pitty things, small things, and it is not as it doesn't differ as much as Catholicism and Protestants.
Yeah. It's something I'd like to learn more about from a sort of academic standpoint, and I don't expect you to have to. I'm not going to ask you to give me a lecture on this 1K right now.
No. I'm just saying, the thing is, it is very hard to change. It's so rigid in this one. Anyway, I don't want to take you too much of your time. Thank you very much.
Oh, appreciate the conversation. You have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, we've definitely talked before about how people go into a bookstore looking for books on atheism in the religious studies section.
Yeah.
Whether or not that is, quote, appropriate, is atheism just another religion? Like, I feel like that conversation has been had. But this idea around atheism as a word or as a uniting banner, any final thoughts there?
Again, I think especially in the modern era where it's part of our branding. There were a couple of things I would have asked Kay maybe in another call if he ever calls back and I'm on. Like, would you have us rebrand the atheist community of Austin to the skeptic community of Austin or the humanist community of Austin or something of that nature? Do you think that would be a prudent thing to do or appropriate? And then there was also running through my mind through that whole conversation is the secularization of religious practice. That's kind of my sort of future ideal, where people still choose to celebrate Christmas, understanding that Jesus was not divine and that God isn't real, or decide to go through the really quite difficult task of a full run of Ramadan. I worked alongside Muslim colleagues where Ramadan fell during one of the hottest summers in UK history, and because it's sun up to sunset. And days are very long in summer in the UK, in the Northern Hemisphere, because we're further away from the equator. It was brutal I'm like, some people may still understanding that Allah isn't real, or cannot be proven to be real, and therefore don't believe in it, but they still want to hold to that tradition and challenge themselves and feel that the going without and the depriving yourself to understand what it's like for other people who don't. There's a lot of, I think, certain religious practices and our cultural touchstones that I wouldn't want to see erased from society. The whole Merry Christmas thing, yeah, call it Merry Christmas. I'll call it Christmas. Anyone can call it Christmas, as long as you understand that the Christ bit need not necessarily be true, and that if someone says Happy Hanukkah or Happy Kwanzaa or whatever, Happy Holidays, that is just them expressing their cultural view of the holiday season, not attacking yours. I think that's where a lot of this comes up, where a lot of religious people have this persecution complex. If you don't call the holidays the same thing that I call it, then you're attacking me. And I'm like, but I'm not, though.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate what you're saying. Like, we can say Happy Groundhog's Day without believing in the weather predicting abilities of small rodents.
Indeed. And yes, we can wish each other a happy Valentine's Day without understanding the concept of love. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, to that end, I don't know. I don't want to come across as some sort of crazy conspiracy theorist, but as we wage these culture wars, I have always felt like the quote war on Christmas has been this really bizarre false flag kind of accusatory thing. Like I said, I've never, with all of the time I've spent sitting in bars just sort of planning the revolution with a bunch of atheists, I've never heard anybody meaningfully complain about happy holidays, Merry Christmas type language.
No, and I love all the aesthetics of it as well. I would be tempted if there was an Episcopalian church somewhere around Austin. I might be tempted to go to a Christmas service just to sort of soak in everyone being together and singing carols and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's kind of like, entering enemy territory. Oh, no, just people enjoying the season. They may, I could perhaps again have that conversation about the epistemological grounding of their belief and how believable it is. But I'll sing Carol of the Bells with them. I'll sing Silent Night. I don't believe round yon virgin mother and child actually happened, but I'll sing about it with you if you like, because it's a cool song and it reminds me of good times.
Yeah, and I can very much appreciate that. And, my family does have a number of sort of Christmassy traditions, and we do participate in some of the more standard cultural ones. And I want to spare a thought for a great number of people watching this who feel like the thought of walking into an old style Episcopalian sanctuary would be incredibly triggering.
Yeah.
As we're talking about like family boundaries, I do want to give people permission to be bothered by some of these things. Not to be an ass about any of these things, but if something does bother you, you're not being a baby. Like, you're not making that up. How you feel is how you feel. What you do about it actually matters, and setting healthy boundaries is not an invalid way to do something about it.
Yeah. I again, sort of to Kay's point, and I've said this before, is that I'm a humanist first, a skeptic second, and an atheist third. So I would say approach if you have triggers around these points, approach them with humanism first. Like, make sure you're cooling yourself, you're comfortable, and you're dealing with it. But then come to it skeptically and say, well, are these triggers actually rational? Can I figure my way through them? Because it is kind of ironic sometimes that there are people, and for good reason, they've been hurt by religion or those that profess faith, but that sets them down a path of their own irrationality, that anyone who is religious or anyone who believes in a God of any kind is up to something or is sneaky or immoral. And that is as irrational as a God belief. So rationality, please.
Well, let me take a moment to say thank you to Ann Johnson for a $5 super chat saying, would love to hear from a theist today. I'm definitely joining you. Whatever that was, whatever else we've got going on today, I'd love to hear from anybody out in the audience, really, who is working through some of these processes. Otherwise, Jamie, is there anything that you feel is sort of missed when it comes to how to deal with holidays and family?
Sorry, I was slightly derailed by that because I'm like, oh, Atheists, is this your champion? Come to the crucible of ideas. How very poor. But no, in terms of dealing with family, again, it's the whole how much you're willing to compromise on certain things, certain ideals, and to maintain a relationship. That is an individual choice, and it's one that, again, I would encourage you to come to, unlike that last call, with seriousness and with forethought and with rationality. Like, think to yourself, like, I want to set these certain boundaries around these certain topics because of ... And if it's because of trauma or anger, think about that and go, is it appropriate to what I experienced? Because, again, I'm never going to tell someone who truly was deeply wounded by someone who was supposed to love and protect them because of a religious or faith-based position. Pardon me, that was disgusting. A faith-based position. Lots of people, LGBTQ community people, have their actual existence invalidated by friends and family after they come out because of religion. And I would never deign to go, well, have you tried talking it out with them? That's a decision for them to come to on their own. But if they want to, if they feel it's worth it, if they want to rekindle that, then I would also say, what do you hope to get from that rekindling? Because be realistic in that too. If you're hoping for them to go, oh, we were wrong about it, and you're not an abomination, and everything's better, and a complete reversal on the position that they had that caused them to harm you that way, you might be, be ambitious, but you might be shooting a little bit for the moon there. Have realistic expectations for how those conversations could turn out, and try and pre-prepare. Like, if the conversation reaches this point, this inflection point, then I know that this bridge cannot currently be built. Like, have a question that has a definite, that has an answer that you have to hear, and ask that question. And if they answer it in a way that is not satisfying, then that's an end of the inflection point. I found that quite useful in the conversations I'm having here on the show and in other aspects of my life. I think to myself, what is the inflection point? Where is that point? That question I want to ask, and I'm expecting a certain answer. And if they don't answer it the way that I'm hoping they do, then we're in an impasse. And secondly, what do I hope to get out of this conversation? What is my objective in doing this? Because if it is just to try and convince someone to change their mind on something, or arbitrarily, or because you think you have the right of it, you are almost Sisyphean in that task. That's going to be a serious uphill struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear all of that. And I guess I want to clarify a little bit around just sort of that notion of trauma, because I think we can acknowledge that when you've had a traumatic experience in the past, you can carry a lot of those emotions into the present with you. And so it's not the case that your emotions are invalid, because they're coming from somewhere and they make sense once people understand them, once you yourself can understand them, but they may not be appropriate to the situation. Now, if you find yourself getting more upset and more angry than any particular moment or any particular aspect of the conversation that you're in ought to bring out, or you would think would bring out, or would expect would bring out, it's likely because you're unpacking some big emotions from your past. And that is a completely valid experience. it may or may not be appropriate to the situation that you're in. And I think that's important to take responsibility for as well.
Yeah, yeah. And the ability you get to choose exactly what you say, and you have zero choice over how people interpret it. So don't expect people to react in a particular way to your words, because they may interpret them differently, and you have no direct control over that. Anyway.
Yeah. So going into the holiday season, I think people should probably be aware of certain trigger points. I mean, just walking into a church building can be really challenging for a lot of people. I mentioned the songs at the grocery store. A lot of these things that may not seem important can become really challenging if we aren't aware of them. Are there any other particular points that you'd maybe encourage folks to be kind of keeping an eye out for?
I would say that in navigating these times, where the entire world is like doused in cultural touchstones that are linked to things that can be traumatic. In the case of the holidays like Christmas and things like that, religion, not quite so much maybe Thanksgiving, but that has also connotations. And I'm sure there's people in certain minority demographics that have very strong feelings about how some certain historical aspects of Thanksgiving are portrayed. That can be very triggering, and when the whole world essentially is this thing, like, you can't escape it. You can't run away from Thanksgiving. You can't run away from Christmas. It's literally everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, so you either can cocoon yourself against it, like form connections with people who either share similar traumas or understand yours and are happy to sort of accommodate them. It's one of the great things about the ACA is we literally have a building here where if you want to get away from Christmas, if you want to get away from carols and stuff, you can come here and we will understand that that's how you want to roll, and to be accepting of that. So
Sure.
Finding your tribe that way, if you can't get away from it, find other people who can help you through it. That'd be my only other piece of advice.
Sure. Heard. Well, one more quick piece of advice for me before we jump back on the calls. I want to remind people to check out the nonprofits, the premier spot to get caught up on the latest news articles pertaining to the separation of religion and government, as well as religion's impact on society and pop culture. You can check them out on TikTok and catch new episodes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m., as well as on YouTube.
Yeah, I really like non-profits because some people complain that we don't get political enough, especially currently, because we do have to be careful about what we say and about whom and why, to make sure that we are staying within our remit and mission. So if you want to see the ACA kind of get as political as we can, the non-profits is really where you want to go, because they're going to be talking about current events, current news, and because it's sort of pre-planned and pre-recorded, they're not going to get ambushed by someone trying to get a gotcha moment. You'll get a lot of honesty from the hosts on the shows. So yeah, if you want to see the ACA get political, that's where you go.
Cool. Well, fair enough. For now, let's talk to Lisa in Canada, who's trying to navigate some family stuff this holiday season. Linda, what's on your mind? Or I'm sorry, Lisa.
Hi. So this is not me personally. I was just thinking in terms of the holidays are coming up, and there are some people who are atheists who struggle because they came from religious families, and there's pressure to revert, if you know what I like, to go, why can't you reconsider this, your religion or whatever. And I just wanted to ask, because if there's any atheists out there, and there probably are a lot of people who come from religious families, what advice would you give to anyone in that kind of situation?
You want to go?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll jump in and just say that I want to echo something that Jamie brought up earlier. I hate to put it in such capitalistic terms, but I think that considering the return on investment here can be really valuable. You know, kind of asking yourself, how much would it cost me to participate in this or to join in on that activity? How much is it going to trigger me or upset me? What would the sacrifice look like? Now, if we're talking about family pressure to actually like take on a belief system other than our own, you know, I don't know that you can really put the toothpaste back into the tube. You can go to church, but if you don't believe in God, I don't think that you can really believe in God. I don't know that that's a willful decision that we might make. I am obviously not here volunteering for an atheist organization because I think that the world has benefited from people being more flexible and more willing to go to church. But I do want to encourage people to ask themselves, like, what would it cost and what would it gain me in terms of family unity and connection and relationship? What is it going to hurt in terms of my own identity, feeling respected by the people around me, respecting myself and holding on to my own values? I think asking those questions in a sincere way is an important part of this conversation.
Right. Like I can give you just a personal example. I started questioning my faith around maybe like 8. And then by the time I was a teenager, I just didn't believe anymore. And I grew up in a very Catholic household. My parents were very, very hardcore Catholics. And, you know, when I came out to them, or not, gosh, I don't want to see me sound like that. When I went to them and told them that I don't really believe in that, you know, their response was, if you live in this house, you're Catholic. And so I'm like, God, I got to pretend so that I'm not homeless. That was my first thought. Like, I have to pretend so that I still have a home as a teenager.
That is extremely, extremely harrowing. It's also quite common.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we've heard stories similar to that in the past. In that case, again, it's a much harder calculation to make, and often it comes down on the I just have to get through this until such time as I can be independent. But it is that if you have an out, if you can find an out, if it is so egregious, the imposition of these religious constraints upon you, as to be considered imposing on your own human rights in a significant way. Some people have sought emancipation for such things and gotten out from under their parents and really gone to extremes to escape those situations. And that's the nuclear option, but it's necessary for some people. Now, if you have the resilience to continue that, I'll use some phrasing that I use in my day job when I talk to cancer patients on the daily who are put in situations that they didn't ask for and shouldn't be in. And I say to them that it isn't fair. It isn't fair that this is happening to you. It isn't fair. And in your case, it wasn't fair for them to do that to you. But it is as it is. You can't undo it. So you have to build tools to cope with it or escape from it, basically. And it's going to vary from severity to severity. That was a very severe situation you were in. I can only imagine how difficult it would be. I mean, and that they would, and that having the conversation of saying, well, you understand that while I will continue to undertake the tasks that are expected of me as a Catholic, I will go to Mass and I will take communion and I will go to confession and things like that. I'm not going. You can't make me believe in any of it. Even that conversation could be enough of a risk to get you chucked out. So it's that. These are topics that are implicitly known to everyone in this room, and no one's going to talk about it because they don't. It's too sore. So I don't really have that much advice other than almost a daily reassessment of can I stand this life? If so, for long enough to get through it. If so, then fine. If not, be proactive, make a plan, get out, find support. That's what I'd say. And if in the context of the holidays, or if you've had religious trauma in the past and had family that have become so hardcore that you've become separated from them, but you're forced to be in their company again, or they're asking you to be in their company again, honesty, like have a plan. If you think you can go to mass and say your prayers and sing and just not mention the fact that you're not believing any of this and just perform it for their comfort, because their comfort is reward enough for your sacrifice, then do that. But if you can't do that, don't try to do that. Be honest, saying, I will come and I will even do the things you would like me to do with you as a family. I will come to mass. I will do these things. But I'm going to say right now, before I come, I will not be believing any of it is real. And if you can't deal with that, then I can't be with you. And they will either accept it or they won't.
I was wondering, you mentioned that you volunteer with cancer patients.
Mm-hmm.
I have a chronic illness myself, and it's not as bad as cancer, but I have a chronic psychiatric condition that I need constant treatment for. And sometimes there have been people who've come up to me and tell me, you need Jesus in order to get better, or and that is what affected me more than my parents, is having people, like I was at a support group once and it was held at a church, but a lot of people rent out church basements. So I didn't really think that much of it, because a different support group I had gone to was held at a church and it was secular. So I didn't think much of it. I just thought maybe they booked it or something. And this person, like in front of everyone, was like, I was talking about how I was struggling with my disorder, and she just blurted out, "Oh my God, when are you gonna accept Jesus Christ in your life?" And I was just like, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is a spiritual based place." But even if it was a spiritual base, like, you would think, right, that that would be still inappropriate to say that.
It is. I think it is. The thing is with these kinds of support groups, and Christy will probably be able to back me up on this, they don't need accreditation. It's just people meeting and under a mutual banner. And yes, the intersection of religion and health is another sticky subject that I've encountered many times. People who think that they don't need to do certain treatments or follow certain advice because they have God on their side, and having to hold your tongue because, it's not my place to disabuse them of that notion in my role outside here. If they called in with that to the ACA, I'd be right on. I'm going to show me the peer-reviewed paper that Jesus will cure your cancer. But again, I would say just appeal to rationality and skepticism on it if you can. Say, well, if you can show evidence it to me, then I might be convinced. But otherwise, I'm going to have to just ask you not to suggest that again. Right.
And the thing is that some of these people would tell me that while I was getting sicker, so my ability to examine that, it was harder because you're more vulnerable, right?
I tell you, they get you sometimes, and one of the types of conversation starters, and we've had it with people who call the show and that really reach into my chest cavity and grab my heart and twist it, is people who have the story of, I was at my lowest ebb, I was on drugs, I was lost, and then I found Jesus. And all I hear is, I was vulnerable, and Jesus found me and hunted me and took me, because it's such a common story, because you are easily susceptible when you are weak, when you're going through the darkest times, when you're desperate for any kind of support, any kind of knowledge. A lot of people want to know why these things happen to them. Is there a reason behind it? And often there isn't. But when someone comes up and gives you a comfortable lie, it's easy to fall into that trap. And it breaks my heart every time, going back to our conversations of when can religion be actively harmful. That's when.
Yes. And that's the thing, is that because my condition is psychiatric, and it affects how I think, affects how I feel, and if I'm starting to get sick again, because it's recovery is never a straight line.
Sure.
When I start to get, if I start to get sick again, I don't have the same. I don't have the same mechanisms to reject what they're saying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, your defenses go down in much the same way that Jamie was talking about. I'll guess I'll just say that I really believe in the model of religion as something of a thought virus, and that our immune system can be weakened by the stresses and the other challenges that we have going on in life, and that religion can be incredibly predatory in that way. I'm sorry that this is something that you are battling with, and I can appreciate if the constant pressure from your family is something that you need to have very active and intentional boundaries around.
Yeah, just to reiterate, it's not fair.
Well, don't feel sorry for me though. I found a treatment that works, and I haven't had a hospitalization in 3 years.
Glad to hear it.
You know what? Recovery is possible for anyone. You just got to figure out what's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations and good on you. And thank you so much for giving us a call today.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Hope you have a good Sunday.
Give it up.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. That you might have noticed by my tone. That gets to me. That fucks me off proper hardcore. And
yeah, the no atheist in a foxhole notion that, when everybody's suffering, that's when God can get in.
And then finding your tribe, finding support systems that work for you, it can be quite difficult, especially in things like the mental health space and support, or just general support, because religion has a monopoly on charity. It's kind of weird. I'm lucky that I work for a secular charity, and I volunteer for a secular organisation. I can avoid much of those pitfalls, but organisations that require you to sit and get lectured, get sermoned at before they give you a sandwich. It's all a bit creepy to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we've got a call out of Colorado, call sign Supreme Leader. Mm-hmm. Howdy. What can we do for you today, sir?
Hi. The name was a joke, you guys. It's just a pseudonym.
Yeah, no, totally. I assumed.
Yeah.
But what's on your mind?
So I'm just curious. Well, can I ask you guys a few questions?
Okay.
Yeah. Can you tell us where we're headed? What's kind of the central tenet of your call?
Well, I'm not familiar with you two people as hosts. So you have a specific educational background, perhaps a specialty where you have a degree in it or something?
Yeah, I went to university.
Yeah, I'm a licensed professional counselor. Yeah. What? Can you help me understand where you're headed or what this call is about?
Yeah, what are you hoping to get out of the call?
Oh, well, I was just trying to know about you. It didn't have anything to do with the actual conversation. Sometimes people are specializing in statistics or philosophy or engineering or biology, things like that. And I don't know you. I just happened to be on the show today.
Okay.
The conversation was about you have read the Bible, both of you, right?
I have, yes.
So I've not gotten through all of it yet. I am endeavouring to expand my knowledge. I've read several books front to back of it, but there are bits that I haven't as of yet.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I've spent hours and hours combing through it myself, though I'm rather rusty since it's been a good 10 years since I put it down for good.
So, what do you think about prophecy?
I don't think any of them have been fulfilled. None that have been presented to me, anyway, in any convincing fashion.
Yeah, if the question is, what do I think about the prophecies that are in the Bible that are also fulfilled in other sections of the Bible, I've never found any of them to be particularly compelling.
No.
You know, they're not necessarily novel. They're not necessarily, things that we wouldn't just see happen by random chance.
Yeah. And other hosts and colleagues of whom have far more experience, such as Justin DZ and others, I've seen them give counterexamples as to how these prophecies have not actually been fulfilled, and they're coming from an academic background, and I find their arguments more compelling than the counter. But I myself am not a biblical scholar.
Oh, I had one other question. I'm sorry. So if we call this number, any atheist show that happens to be on the air at the time, I call it and I'll be on the air?
Well, as long as you're in the queue and you're accepted, we're under no obligation to take any given.
This is the same phone number for all of the atheist community of Austin productions.
Yeah.
You can check the production schedule and see which shows are airing when and who will be hosting them.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Did you want to talk more about this idea of biblical prophecy, or where are we going?
No, I was just curious because I thought that was a great idea. If you have that number and whatever show happens to be on at the time, you can call it and talk to somebody.
Well, if you have any suggestions for the organisation, you can just send them to tv@atheist-community.org. That's our sort of feedback email address. Feel free to pop them in there, and they will be seen, and if you direct them, say, I want this to go to Jamie the Blind Limey, it will be forwarded to me, and I will read it. But unless you have any conversations around the topics of religion, separation of religion and government, belief, epistemology, this isn't the customer service line, basically.
Fair to say.
Okay, I just thought that was a great idea to use one number for all the shows, is what I'm saying.
Yep, it is. That's why we do it.
Okay. In terms of prophecy, okay. So in the New Testament, especially in the book of Revelation, it's saying certain things are going to happen. And if those things do happen and you see them happening, would that make any difference?
It really wouldn't when you talk about the book of Revelation specifically. Like in the abstract, if you were to say to me, like, if I can predict the future and then it comes true, would you find that to be impressive? Like, yeah, sure. I'd be very interested in going down that route with you. But I've seen the prophecies that are in the book of Revelation, and they are very, very vague and messy. Even if I were to wake up tomorrow and be literally living in the Left Behind universe from Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins, I still wouldn't be able to take the things that I was witnessing and connect them directly to biblical prophecy, because there is so much murkiness in all of those prophecies. And there's so many things that are said to, that it is said will happen, that happen on a regular basis.
Mm. And certain things that are supposed to be definite in the book of Revelation have been attributed to multiple things throughout the years, whatever the mark of the beast on the hand or the head. That's credit cards, or it's checks. No, it's credit cards. No, it's crypto. No, it's this. No, it's that. And it's like
these things apply. Yeah,
it's never any of those things. It's always something new. So unfortunately, apologetics of the past have torpedoed the believableness, I'm searching for the word, of apologetics now, because it's like, this is just the flipping, it's credit cards again.
Yeah, and I don't mean to pile on, but just, I think it's worth pointing out that to me, the most significant and important prophecy in the entire Bible was when Jesus said that he was going to come back while many people who were gathered there were still alive within their lifetimes. that one is kind of difficult to bend and misappropriate or reinterpret in any kind of context. And I don't really see it happening. We can get into, the Holy Spirit and Pentecost and how that fulfills the whatever. But I don't know. It's very hard for me to take any biblical prophecy seriously when the most important one seems to be blatantly untrue.
Wouldn't it be awesome though if like Zebedee, like the just one of the random non-famous disciples, had been alive for 2,500 years and comes back and goes, "I'm the oldest man in existence, and guess what? It's Big J. Here he comes." That'd be cool. But that's pretty much the only way I can see that prophecy panning out. That there's a 2,300-year-old man just kind of knocking about somewhere that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are so calm when you talk to people. You're nothing like Matt.
Well, we try to be our own people. Anything else that you want to go over, mate?
Well, you touched on the point I was trying to make the point about was, now, if we happen to have a mark worldwide and you can't buy or sell without it, and, well, of course, that will correlate with the prophecy. Would that really make any difference to you?
Well, you'd have to make it absolute. Like, so many things have been attributed to this mark and the ability to buy or sell. Like, you can't buy or sell without it. I'm like, well, nothing correlates, because I could close every bank account I have. I don't own any crypto. I could divest myself of everything but fiat currency, and I can still buy and sell. And if I can't buy and sell, I can still barter. I can still get goods and take goods. I know people who have zero cash income, but through mutual effort, they'll like draw a picture for someone or help someone out as a favor. They get like goods and services in return, kind of like in the days before money. So you would have to have it where concepts like bartering and trade of goods and services intrinsically are impossible. Not just banned, but impossible. You physically can't do it for that to come true enough for me to believe it.
Right. Okay, so that combined with signs in the moon and the sun and the stars and the floods and all that stuff, all at the same time, it still really wouldn't be enough, would it? And even if it was,
I mean, look, if there was suddenly a one world government that forced a one world currency at the same time that there was total darkness and plagues of locusts, I'd be freaked the fuck out, because all of those things sound terrible. But that doesn't mean that I would be quick to worship the God of the Bible, who did not come back when he said that he would, who's been proven a liar to my mind.
And I'd be asking, well, is it the divine coming true, or is it a bunch of very powerful people who want it to make it look like the divine is coming true for their own?
Or do shitty things happen?
Yeah.
Do floods really happen? Do locusts and plagues really exist in the actual world?
Yeah, and have forever. But even if right down, I mean, there's certain things in the Book of Revelation that are like hallucinogenically trippy, and are either, if they happen literally, like a beast with 7 heads, and on its head 7 crowns, and in its mouth the words of blasphemy. Like, is that a metaphor, or are we going to be fighting fucking kaiju? Like, I want to know.
Yeah, if I have to fight a dragon, I'll probably be reevaluating a lot of the things that I understood to be true about the world. Yeah. But I don't think the first thing I would do is run to a Bible.
Have you ever heard of the Mind Palace?
I mean,
no, I'm not familiar with that thought experiment.
In the concept of like having an inner, like a very vivid inner world, and like the trope that was used in the Sherlock show, in that context, maybe.
Sherlock, that's a great point. So there's a mnemonic technique for memorization, and it's where you turn memories into images to more easily remember vast amounts of information.
Yeah, memory masters do it. Yeah, it's how people can remember pi to 50,000 places.
Yeah, it's utterly amazing.
Yeah,
I can't do it, but I've heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the image explained, the apocalyptic imagery, is a mnemonic device to help one remember vast amounts of various points of information, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I mean, sure, this vague nebulous prophecy is vague and nebulous, or it's the hallucinogenic ravings of a stranger from nearly 2,000 years ago. I'm not particularly motivated one way or the other. I just don't see any reason to base my life on these kind of surreal ramblings, no matter how we stretch them to apply, or no matter how much they seem like they might fit into any sort of modern context. People have been trying to shoehorn them into the newspaper for certainly my entire lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, when you've got an entire religion who's...
For centuries.
Yeah. And we've just had one. We've just had a rapture that didn't happen.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So here's a question for you, Chief. Let's say that I don't know. I'm not going to assume that you actually believe that the Book of Revelation is true prophecy and has or will come true. But let's say someone does.
Well, actually, I do.
Okay,
I do.
So you do, and you come to me saying that, and you believe it, and you're right. Right? For the sake of argument, you're right. And then someone else comes to me with a different interpretation. And none of these have come true in a way that I can personally see. But someone else comes to me with the same kind of story, or even the same story, but they're just off their rocker. They're making it up or are mistaken. How do I tell the difference?
How do you tell the difference? Well, that would be up to you. You have to use your own mind, just like anybody else does.
Well, my mind is seeing these two people telling me extremely similar stories, and I can't take either of them seriously because I don't have enough evidence right now myself. So is there some methodology where I could be more convinced of the truth than someone else is? How do I get to that truth? How do I know that you're telling me the truth and this other person is not? And I'm not saying that they're lying, they're just wrong, you know?
Well, you remember the vaccinations and stuff. All of us wear masks.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, there are certain places you really couldn't walk into a place without that mask on. They wouldn't let you in there.
Good.
And certain, like if you wanted to fly,
yep.
Well, you had to have that mask on, or else they wouldn't let you in.
Yeah, I had to ride a bus before the vaccinations came through. It was terrifying, but I did it anyway.
Well, I'm just saying, there are certain places, like if you're in the military and you don't take the vaccination, you get kicked out.
Yeah.
If you're trying to fly certain places.
Yeah, I had to take a bunch of vaccinations to get my green card. They wouldn't let me into the country if I didn't get my jabs.
Yeah, to go to university, I had to have a series of vaccinations that I had missed out on as a kid because of the, kind of conspiracy theory mindedness that was centered around vaccines when I was a child in the 90s. Mm-hmm. A lot of those types of conspiracy theories have made a recent have come back into vogue in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Can you help me put this together with how we should be using the Bible to interpret what we're seeing in modern events?
Well, the point is that was just a mask. Okay. Now people see you walking around without that mark. They ain't gonna like you very much. And you can't really go nowhere without anybody.
Yeah, and people who don't have a visa aren't able to buy things at places that are credit card only. And people who have cash from a different country aren't able to buy things and make change.
Oh, man.
None of this is clearly by any means what the Bible is suggesting. And it's such a stretch to try and put it all together in that way.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why you would do that unless you were doing it after the fact.
Yep.
If you started from the premise that the Bible is true, how can I prove that? Then it very clearly becomes, okay, well, this could be that, and this other thing could look like this. But if you were to just start from scratch and say, oh my God, why is everybody forcing everyone else to wear a mask? Well, it's to prevent the spread of a infectious disease that's killing millions of people.
And it's backed by scientific evidence that stretches back decades.
Right. If you're not wearing the mask, I mean, it's like you don't care about everybody else around you.
No, it's not that you don't care. It's that you are a provable risk. Like you're a risk. It's like walking around with an unholstered weapon with the safety off. Yeah, I'm not going to like you hanging around with like flagging me with a pistol with your finger on the trigger because you're being unsafe. That's not me saying that. I mean, that's an entirely separate thing about gun legislation. But like, if you're being demonstrably, provably unsafe, I'm going to be a bit wary around you. If someone walks into someone walks into a flipping school with a handle of with a machete in one hand and a handle of flipping Tito's in the other, and just plops himself down in the gymnasium and starts drinking vodka, I'm going like, that guy's not safe. I don't think he should be here. So what's your point, Chief?
Exactly. So if the one world system takes place, the monetary system is redone, and now all of a sudden you have to be wearing this mark. Not only that, but if you refuse to take it, the penalty is death. And people see you walk around the streets, you ain't got no mark on your forehead or your right hand. You can't buy nothing or sell nothing unless you're in the system, exactly, and not on the black market. And people really do not like you very much at that point. What kind of a choice is that? But the same.
Yeah, it sounds like a terrible fantasy to live in.
Yep.
Good thing none of that is real or happening.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate the concerns that you have, but I have to point out the irrational fear-mongering based on a bunch of ancient poetry. There's really no cause to believe that these are actual problems. And if it is intimidating you, then I would encourage you to apply some skepticism and some rationality and to try and identify some of the post hoc rationalization that goes into this belief system.
You're also preaching. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, we're already a little bit long on the tooth on this episode, so I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it there.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you giving us a holler.
Thanks for the call, man.
So you want to end the call. You don't want to hear me out about how the monetary system is about to change.
Well, what thing is, you kind of we were almost at.
I wanted to hear it 20 minutes ago,
yeah.
but I'm bored and I'm over time.
Yeah, if
to be frank and direct about it.
Call in earlier. We had open lines for like 25 minutes at the start of the show. If you'd have caught us earlier, you would have had a lot more time to talk. Because it's a bit fascinating that you are talking to a guy who regrets that my home country did not take on the euro and exited the European Union. So trying to convince me that having a single government and a single currency is a bad thing, you're barking up the wrong tree, mate.
So we will leave it there.
Yep.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Yep.
Went to some interesting places in today's episode, but it's been a good time. I've been glad to have you with us.
I have had a good time, and that was good. And that last call, I'm glad that we had a conversation. That last bit though, I was a little bit. Oh, so you don't want to hear me out? And I'm like, no, we're out of time. It's like someone at the end of a football match where one team's already won and the whistle's been blown, going, no, I want 10 more minutes. I've got to score enough goal. Like, the game's over, mate. We're out of time.
Yeah, well, just a good reminder to encourage everybody to bring their A game. We have spent this entire conversation talking about how we are not looking to be difficult, how we're not looking to stir up derision. We're not trying to get into arguments with folks. We'd love to hear everybody's point of view, but show up with something to say and try and say it in a way that is clear and, most importantly, concise. And if you struggle with that, we'll definitely do our best to help you get on rails. I don't want anybody to be too nervous to call. We're not mean, we don't bite, but we do get bored. So with that, I'm going to take a moment to thank our top 5 patrons before we bring Aaron back in and say goodbye to everybody. Our top 5 patrons this week are Oops All Singularity, Dingleberry Jackson, Kalevi Helvetti, J.A. Carlton, and Casey Kickendall. Honorable mention this week is Stephen McDougall. Thank you to everybody who gives to us on Patreon. If you are interested in having your name read on air, tiny.cc/PatreonTH. Okay, well, let's go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Ironically, our patrons are to us as the Vatican was to Michelangelo and Leonardo. Anyway, let's bring Aaron back.
All right. Aaron, what do you think of the show?
I think it was great. One note to make is that our brains see patterns where there aren't patterns, right? You look at a light socket and you're going to see a face. So you read the Bible enough, you read anything enough, you're going to find prophecies, you're going to find patterns that maybe aren't there. So if you really want to get to truth, you can't start with the Bible. You have to set the Bible aside. You have to pretend it doesn't exist. And then you have to go out in the world and find things that Bible explains.
Mm-hmm. No, that's well said. I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. Any other thoughts or love rings that y'all want to send out before we wrap up for the day?
To everyone who wants to have a reasonable conversation in these troubling times, I'm right there with you.
Heard. Yeah. So say we all. Well, to everybody who is dealing with family, trying to navigate finances and the strange economics and the lack of benefits in our current modern world, you definitely have all of our love and attention. And to anybody who doesn't believe, we want to say that this is your community and we absolutely appreciate you being here. If you do believe, Jamie and I, the entire ACA, we definitely don't hate you. We're just not convinced.
We want the truth. So watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Call 512-991-9242 or visit tiny.cc/call TW.